Okay, let's dive right into this truly fascinating chapter. Today we're breaking down the literal text of Exodus 14. We are going to look strictly at the plain meaning of the text, the Peshat. We'll be going step by step, verse by verse, leaving absolutely nothing out so we can understand exactly what happens in this massive, pivotal moment in history.
Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today, we explain Exodus chapter 14 in a clear and simple way, step by step. Just to set the stage really quickly, the Israelites have just left Egypt. The devastating plagues are over, and they are marching out boldly. Freedom at last! But their journey to freedom is about to hit a massive, seemingly impossible roadblock. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the geographical trap. Second, panic and the promise. Third, parting of the sea. Fourth, the final deliverance. Then we'll wrap up with some key ideas and lessons and a short recap.
All right, let's jump straight into part 1, the geographical trap, covering verses 1 through 9.
So right at the beginning of the chapter, God gives Moses these incredibly specific instructions on exactly where to camp by the sea. And the crazy thing is, the locations mentioned literally box the Israelites in. It's a total dead end. Let's look at the Hebrew names here to really get it. Pahirot translates roughly to the mouth of the gorges or mouth of freedom. Then there's Migdol, which means tower, likely a huge Egyptian military watchtower, and Baal-Zephon, which actually refers to an Egyptian idol, the Lord of the North. So think about this. God deliberately places them right between a military fortress, a pagan idol, and the deep sea. Why? Well, he explicitly tells Moses why. He says Pharaoh is going to look at them and think, they're wandering in confusion. They're completely hemmed in by the desert. And sure enough, back in Egypt, Pharaoh and his officials have this sudden massive change of heart. They realize they just let their entire slave labor force walk away. And they ask themselves, what on earth have we done?
And so Pharaoh mobilizes a terrifying elite military force. The text gets really specific here. It says he takes 600 of his absolute best hand-picked chariots, and not just those, but all the other chariots in Egypt, fully loaded with officers over every single one of them. We're talking about the full, overwhelming, devastating might of the Egyptian military machine coming right at them. The Hebrew text makes a fascinating note here. It says, the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. Now, the actual Hebrew word used is chazak, which means to strengthen or to embolden. So driven by this newly emboldened ironclad resolve, Pharaoh chases down the Israelites and overtakes them exactly where God said they would be, camped right by the sea.
That brings us to part 2, panic and the promise, covering verses 10 through 14.
You can literally feel the tension in these verses. There is this intense, dramatic contrast between human terror and Moses' unwavering faith. Imagine the scene. The Israelites look up and they spot this terrifying, invincible-looking Egyptian army marching right after them. Naturally, they're completely terrified. They cry out to the Lord in absolute panic. And then they turn on Moses with this really biting, bitter sarcasm. They say, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us out here to the desert to die?" They actually claim, can you believe it, that it would have been better to just stay as slaves and serve the Egyptians than to die right there in the dirt. Yet, in the face of all this panic, Moses doesn't flinch. He doesn't panic at all. He looks at the people and says, "Do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again."
And that brings us to the absolutely crucial point right here in verse 14. Think about their situation. They are completely unarmed, trapped between the world's most elite army in a deep, impassable sea. They literally cannot fight their way out, and there is nowhere left to run. But the literal text says, "The Lord will fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace." I love the Hebrew word used here for hold your peace or be still. It's tachrishan. And tachrishan implies this deep, complete, trusting silence. It's not just stop complaining. It's a profound command to quiet your soul and trust entirely in divine intervention when your own human effort is utterly, completely useless.
Moving right along to part 3, parting of the sea, verses 15 through 22.
Now the text lays out the exact step-by-step sequence of this incredible miracle, and it shows exactly how God protected their rear flank before paving the way forward. God basically tells Moses, "Stop crying out to me, and tell the people to start moving." Then, these 4 distinct things happen. First, the angel of God and the massive pillar of cloud that had been leading the Israelites suddenly withdraw. They move completely behind the camp, inserting themselves directly between the Israelites and the advancing Egyptian army.
Second, Moses follows God's command. He raises his staff and stretches his hand out right over the sea. Third, the Lord drives the sea back with a powerful east wind blowing all through the night. And finally, the fourth step, the waters are literally divided, creating a path for the Israelites to walk right through.
And I want to point out something fascinating. The text explicitly tells us about the dual nature of that pillar of cloud. All through the night, this single cloud did two completely different things at the exact same time. On the Egyptian side, it brought pitch-black darkness, completely blinding them and stopping their advance cold. But on the Israelite side, it provided brilliant light to the camp, so they could clearly see the miraculous path opening up before them in the sea. Because of this totally supernatural barrier, neither army could come anywhere near the other all night long.
I really want to clarify exactly how the text describes this actually happening. God used nature to accomplish the supernatural here. It was a strong east wind, in Hebrew a ruach kadim, that blew continuously all night long. And it didn't just move the water, it turned the seabed into completely dry, walkable land. The text makes it a point to say the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground with a literal wall of water standing on their right side and on their left side. It's just a breathtaking image, isn't it? This perfectly clear, completely safe passage right through the middle of an absolutely impossible obstacle.
Okay, let's get into part 4, the final deliverance. This covers verses 23 through 31.
Driven by anger, absolute pride, in the hardened boldness of Pharaoh's heart, the entire Egyptian force does the unthinkable. They plunge right into the dry seabed, chasing after the Israelites. The timeline here is crucial. During the last watch of the night, which in biblical terms is that dark period just before dawn breaks, the Lord looks down from the pillar of fire and cloud and throws the entire Egyptian army into absolute total confusion. Then, just moments later, he makes the wheels of their heavy chariots come off, making them incredibly difficult to maneuver in the seabed. Total panic sets in. The Egyptians finally wake up to what's actually happening and they start screaming, "Let's get away from the Israelites! The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." But honestly, it's way too late. At daybreak, God commands Moses to stretch his hand over the sea one more time, and the water violently, rapidly returns to its natural place, right as the terrified Egyptians are trying to flee.
The literal text is incredibly definitive here about the outcome. There's no ambiguity. The destruction of Pharaoh's army was absolute. The water flowed back and completely covered the chariots and the horsemen, literally the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea. The text plainly states, not one of them survived. Not a single one. That very same day, the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and the Israelites bore visual, concrete witness to their deliverance, literally seeing the Egyptians lying dead on the shoreline. Just like that, the threat of their farmer-slave masters was permanently, undeniably erased forever. And the immediate psychological shift for the Israelites is just profound. Think about it. When they saw this incredible, overwhelming power the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, their earlier panic, their terror, and all that sarcastic complaining was completely washed away, replaced by a deep reverence. The chapter ends by stating that the people feared the Lord. Now, in biblical Hebrew, this fear, yirah, it isn't just terror or being scared. It's a profound awe, a deep, deep respect. They put their trust in him and in his servant Moses. So this massive physical deliverance resulted in an equally massive spiritual transformation for the whole nation.
Now for part 5. Key simple ideas and practical life lessons.
So, what are the key, simple ideas we can pull directly from the plain text here? Well, first and foremost, that God is in complete and total control. He commands the east wind, he controls the sea itself, and he effortlessly outmaneuvers the absolute greatest military force on earth at the time. Second, that seemingly terrible trap at Pi-Hahiroth, it wasn't a geographical mistake, it was actually designed entirely for a victorious purpose, to definitively show God's glory. And third, remember that God told Moses to tell the people to start moving on before the sea was actually fully parted. Deliverance, more often than not, requires a literal act of forward motion before you can see the clear path.
And bringing this into our practical life lessons, remember that when you face your own insurmountable walls, looking backward is never the answer. Going back to old bad habits or toxic situations, just like the Israelites wanting to go back to being slaves in Egypt, is never the right move. Don't panic when you feel totally boxed in by your circumstances. Trust the process. And most importantly, recognize that there are times in life where you simply cannot fight your way out with your own two hands. Sometimes you just need to stand firm, be still, and let the situation unfold as you put your complete trust in a higher deliverance.
Finally, Part 6, a short recap to lock it all in.
In just 4 simple steps, we've journeyed through this entire incredible text. First, Israel is seemingly trapped by the sea, but it's entirely by divine design. Second, Pharaoh's hardened, emboldened heart leads him to launch a massive attack with 600 elite chariots. Third, God supernaturally protects the camp with a pillar of cloud, while Moses parts the sea using that powerful continuous east wind. And fourth, the Egyptian army is entirely destroyed by the returning waters, resulting in the total, complete deliverance of the Israelites and their newfound awe and trust in God.
I want to leave you with a really provocative thought to ponder today. The text of Exodus 14 isn't just some ancient, dusty history lesson. It's a profound, timeless study in human panic versus steadfast faith. So the next time you find yourself caught between a massive threat and a deep sea in your own life, how will you respond? Are you going to panic and wish you could just go backward? Or will you stand still, hold your peace, and wait for the path to open?
Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.